Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Good Girls Get Rich podcast. I'm your host, Karen Yankovich, and I am here with Jess Sato today. And Jess, I'm so excited for this conversation because this is a conversation that I just don't think enough people are having in the public space, in the entrepreneurial space. So I really wanted to have Jess on for this show. And some of you may know Jess if you follow Entrepreneurs Unfiltered. We'll talk about that a little bit, but Jess is one of my co-hosts in that panel that I do every week, or at least at the time that we're recording this, we're still doing that Entrepreneurs Unfiltered show. Jess Sato is a big idea and social impact coach. She helps purpose-driven female entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and change makers clarify their big idea, amplify their voice, and create lasting impact. As a former TEDx speaker coach, she specializes in helping women own their expertise, craft powerful messaging, and step onto the stages that matter, from TEDx to podcasts and beyond. Through her BOLT methodology, bold, original, loud, and tenacious, Jessica empowers women to show up with confidence, take up space, and lead conversations that drive change. And I think we need more of those conversations at this moment in the world. I'm so excited to have you here, Jess. We never get to do this, just you and I.
I know. This is so fun.
Yeah. So you heard me say that we Jess is one of the panel members for Entrepreneurs Unfiltered. If you have not checked that out yet, either one of our LinkedIn's, you will, and all of that's in the show notes, will get you to those videos. Or if you're watching this at some point in the future and you want to watch those videos, reach out to one of us and we'll show you how to find them. And those are so much fun to do.
Mm-hmm. It's one of my favorite things we do each week, actually.
Yeah, me too. It's fun to have conversations around things that we just don't get to have conversations around all the time, right? So, so Jess, I read your bio and we talked about a lot of things, but I want to go back to how you refer to yourself. So, I keep looking over here because that's where I have Jess's bio, even though my camera's here. Jess Sato is a big idea and social impact coach. I want you to tell us what a social impact coach is, because that's where I really want this conversation to go, because boy, does our social world need impact right now. So tell us a little bit about what that is.
Gosh, okay, this is kind of a huge topic. And if you ask someone else, they might tell you something different. But the way I think about social impact is really looking at the issues or challenges that we're facing in our local communities or globally that affect other people, and really trying to address those issues or challenges in a positive, thoughtful, and strategic way. And there are many business owners who care about those kinds of issues, but that's not necessarily their space. That's not what their work is really about. And the more I started talking with other business owners, the more I realized, wow, there's something to making sure that your business can be a force for good. And this came about because I was thinking about nonprofits. I was having a conversation with someone who was in the nonprofit space, and they were like, funding continues to be a real challenge. Like, how do we get funding? How do we continue to get funding, even though we're doing really important work? And we know government, depending on where you are in the world, like governments are imperfect. Even though they have a lot of resources, they're not always aligned with, some of these social issues. And sometimes they're causing those social issues. So there's a gap in the middle. And I just kept thinking, man, business could be a really important way to fill that gap. And then once I started digging into it, I realized, oh, wow, there's a whole body of work around business for good and social impact, and really making sure that the businesses that we're building, creating, that we're leading, are doing things to help move the needle forward and help close some of those gaps in a way that only business can do.
So as you say that, I think to myself, and I think for the most part, from what I know of you, and I think I know, we're getting to know each other pretty well. I think what we think is for good is very similar, but not everybody does, right? So as I'm building my business, and I want, one of the things that it's really important to me is I want there to be more wealthy women in the world. I think women with money can change the world. And I think that's really, it's never been more important, I think, than it has been at this moment in time. Some other people may not think that is, where they'd like to have that. That's not the kind of social impact I want to have. Right. So, so I believe that at this moment in time, we need to plant our flag, and we need to, we need to let people know what we believe is social impact for good and what we think isn't, and it's counterintuitive, certainly to the way I grew up, right, many years ago. You don't talk about religion or politics. Now I feel like I have to.
Yeah.
Right, so how does that impact the work that you do?
Yeah, I grew up in that same kind of world where, we weren't talking about any of those things. And I'll be honest, I've wrestled with that too. Like I've been in partnerships where maybe there was a little bit of a split in terms of
Yep,
our
same.
values. I've been, in my own business, I'm like, oh, do I really want to say that? Do I want to get involved in that kind of a conversation? What is that going to do? There is a lot of like internal mental energy that gets brought into the equation. But I think we're in a new era here. Like it's no longer enough to just do business. People want to do business with people who have shared values, who are using their business in ways that align with their values. And I mean, the numbers are pretty significant. I mean, it's something like 85% of Gen Zers and millennials will actively choose a brand because of their values. They will stick with that brand because of their values, and they will advocate for that brand because of those values. And if you think about sort of the buying power of that generation, it is significant. So I think, long gone are the days of, oh, I'm just going to stay quiet. I'm just going to stay in my lane. I'm just going to do business. No, people actually want to know. And if you are not talking about it, and let me just say, you do not have to talk about this in a divisive way. You can just be clear about where you stand. You can,
Yep.
talk about the issues that are important to you and bring those issues forward into the conversation, helping people understand like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that we are aligned on this. I totally want to do business with her. Like that's the kind of thing that matters. The other thing I'll say about this is, and this is probably obvious, none of it can be performative. Like it all has to be authentic and real. Because people can suss that out almost instantly. If you're talking out one side of your mouth, but you're doing something that is sort of counter to that, if you're supporting brands, if you're, not in alignment with the things that you're saying, there will be some penalty around that for sure.
Interesting. It's not easy to do that. Right.
No.
I mean, even if you're committed to doing that, like I feel like I am committed to doing that. And then I go on and, I mean, Amazon is at my house every day, just
Yeah.
because my life just requires that right now, but maybe it doesn't, right? Maybe it doesn't. I'm actively thinking about how do I change that? Right. So,
Yeah.
but as I say that, I think that, so first of all, I think that all of our businesses have a social impact. It's just, what are we choosing for that social impact to be? And are we choosing what we want that to be? And are we following up to make sure that it is having that kind of impact? But so if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I don't really think that that's something I need to think about. Like, trust me, your business has a social impact, right? Mm-hmm. It's just what is that impact? And, you can carefully craft that. But the other thing I think too, is that, I think I feel it, you talked about it from a positive standpoint, which I'm all for, right? Like, let's find businesses that we want to support. But I think that there's the other side to that too. And there's businesses that I choose not to support.
Absolutely.
Today alone, there were two people that I am connected to on Facebook, one of whom I've known and loved for many, many years. I just silenced her for 30 days because I just couldn't have that in my feed. And the other one, I was like, I don't even know this person. Like, she's gone. Like, I don't want these people in my feed. I don't want to support them. I don't want to support what they support. Right. So, so when you take a stand for social impact, you get to do both of those things. Absolutely. And I think, we talked about this, maybe we'll link to that in the show notes, this past week's Entrepreneurs Unfiltered, right? We talked about niching, right? And how when you create a niche for yourself, people know when to come to you. I feel like this is kind of the same thing, right? Like if they know what you stand for and they know the kind of impact you want to have on the world, they know whether or not they want to support you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, you're right. It can go both ways, right? It helps repel people who are not the right fit, right? So if there's someone who, believes something that's completely counter to your values, they're not going to choose you, and vice versa. And if there's someone who's like, yeah, I totally am vibing with what she's saying. Like, I didn't even know that was a thing, but now that I'm hearing more about it, I really care about that. It opens a door for people to sort of lean in and make value-based decisions. And in a world right now where it feels like truth is a little bit fluid, all we have are the values that we hold. So,
Right.
being clear as a business owner, not only what your personal values are, but what the business stands for, what the impact is that you want to make, what is your perspective or your point of view on issues or challenges that might sort of surround the business itself. That's really important because it allows you to, as you said, sort of niche down. Um, Part of it is how you communicate who you're here for and allows those people to find you or opt in, opt out. So I think there's a lot of benefit to taking a stand. And like I said, taking a stand does not have to be divisive. Like you don't
Mhm.
have to be confrontational, you don't have to be rude, you don't have to be any of those things. This is some things that are important to me. I care a lot that women have access to menstrual supplies and that they should be free and accessible to women globally. Like maybe that's controversial. I don't know if it is. I'm guessing it must be because that's not a thing that's happening all over the world yet. So
Right, right, which is
um,
crazy,
crazy,
right?
right?
But yeah.
So people know this about me. And if you're like, oh, I don't really care about women, I don't care about the fact that they can't go to school if they're menstruating in some parts of the country or some parts of the world, okay, we're probably not a good fit for each other, right?
Right.
So
But
again, you get to decide.
do you think though too, like I kind of think too though that if you don't take a stand and I don't know where you stand, I will probably buy from someone else
Absolutely.
because
Yeah.
because I don't want to get myself too far down, down a path with somebody who I'm not sure where they stand. Like
Yeah.
it's important to me that I know the values behind the companies that I support.
I completely agree. I
Yeah.
completely agree.
So it isn't even, I don't even think it's optional.
No, I
Yeah.
don't think it is.
So if you're a woman and you're like stepping into a new chapter, right? I know one of the things that you're really good at is also helping them with their big idea, right? Articulating their big idea. Do you bake this in? Like, talk a little bit about that, about how
Yeah.
how you help women create their big idea and how you bake in the social impact that sets
Yeah.
them apart.
Great question. So let me start by saying the big idea from my vantage point is sort of your unique perspective or your point of view on an issue or challenge that is happening in the space where you work or places where you serve. And we need to have a point of view, and it needs to be unique enough that it cuts through the noise. And I would argue most people don't have that or they don't know how to talk about it. So first, I want to help women better understand how to bring all that expertise that they have, all that experience, et cetera, bring it to the table in a way that allows them to speak clearly about what their thoughts and feelings are about issues that are happening in their industry, for example. In the process of that, sometimes you usually get one of two scenarios when it comes to social impact. We get a business model that aligns specifically with that issue. So, a colleague of ours is working in the substance use space. Her entire business is about substance use. She has a unique point of view about the substance use space, and everything she does is geared toward that point of view and the impact that she's trying to make. That's one type of business. So some of it's just naturally woven into the fabric of what they're trying to accomplish and what they're trying to change or challenge from an industry norms perspective. The other, and I think this is probably more common, we're running businesses. So in your case, you said, I really want more wealthy women. So the work that you're doing, the message that you're doing, that you're speaking about, is all about how do we do that, and how is your solution unique? But the result of you doing that could be that you're better able to fund, programs that support women in STEM, women in entrepreneurship in other parts of the world where maybe they don't have the same access. So usually it's like an extension or an effect of having a business that's successful. So more time, more resources, money, et cetera, can, then be donated. So I see those two as the sort of two primary things. So you figure out your big idea. Some of that could be about the social impact, but more often than it's about your business as a whole. And then the effect of you running a successful business allows you to have the social impact that you're actually looking to achieve.
I love that. I love that. So let me ask you something. Where do we screw up, right? What are the mistakes we're making when it comes to doing all of this, being seen and heard for a message that we feel might be a little uncomfortable to talk about?
Yeah, I think we don't talk about it. I think that's the problem. I mean, that's one of the problems.
Amen.
We're not talking about it enough.
Yeah.
So we're not talking, I mean, to your point, we're not talking about we're not really challenging any of the things that we're seeing out there. We're all sort of like floating along the same path. And so there's no real differentiation. Big ideas challenge something. They challenge a commonly held belief, a perspective, a paradigm, et cetera. When you do that, all of a sudden, people take notice, like, oh, that's something different. I haven't heard that before. So I think part of it is we're not saying the things that we want to say or that need to be said. I think, unfortunately, we have, as women, been conditioned to keep quiet. Right. So some of it is because we don't know what to say, and some of it is it's scary to say it. And I'll be honest, I've been on this kick lately where I'm like, I got to do more video. I need to be more visible in this way. And I've been a long time speaker. I'm not scared of being on the stage, but yet to like actually put my words on video, all of a sudden feels scary. So I think we've been conditioned to not rock the boat, to kind of keep ourselves small, to shrink our voice. And because of that, we're not nearly as visible as we need to be. So, some of this is a reframe that has to happen around the importance of our voice, the importance of our message, and how that can be of service and is of service to the right audience for us.
Right. And if we are, there's somebody that's going to hear your voice and they're going to say, I needed to hear that. And that's what I needed to hear for me to take that next step. And that's the ripple effect that this work has, right? Yeah. It's that ripple effect. The power is in the ripple effect, not like we think of power like fireworks, like one big thing, but really the ripple effect is the power, I think.
Absolutely.
Because that's where, the rising tide that lifts all boats, right? Like we start to lift each other up, and women get a bad rap for that, right? Like they're catty, or there's movies about this, and there's so much about this, but I almost never experienced that in my life. I think women are really good at lifting each other up when we choose to, right? Yeah. And when we choose to decide to grow our world and our network and our voices to get it in front of more people. And it is scary sometimes.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
But do you think, Jess, that it's scarier for the people we know than the people we don't know? Right? Like, for example, like I remember the first episode of this podcast, like episode 1, you can go listen to it at KarenYankovich.com/001. I remember thinking, like, I didn't really care about people I didn't know and what they heard. It was like, oh my gosh, well, what is this person going to think? Or what is that person going to think? Right. So when I am putting my voice out there in a way that, in things that I stand for, it's not the people that I don't know that I worry about. And not that I really worry about anybody, but if there's anybody that I worry about, it's the people that I do know, and that is like, who cares? Right. Like I should not care about that. But I think sometimes that's what we do.
I think it varies. Mm-hmm. So I think it sort of depends on where you are, but to your point, like, sometimes I am worried, like, what are people I know going to think? Are they going to resonate with this? Are they going to think this is crazy? Especially if it's someone who knows you, but maybe they haven't been on this journey with you. Like maybe, I started thinking, like, when I was first starting the online portion of my business, I was thinking, oh my God, all my high school friends, all my college friends are going to see this. And are they going to wonder, like, what the heck? How did this come about? Right. So I think there's some of that.
Yes.
But I think in general, what I hear a lot is I'm worried about people attacking me, right? There is a dark side to visibility. And, the internet is kind of a cesspool most of the time. And even though we can get good things from it, people, there's something happens with the screen that, takes your empathy down. And so the things that you would say to a human being, you feel like, all of a sudden you can just say all the things.
Right. Things that you would never say to somebody if you were in the same room.
You just would never do that. Right. So I think, what I hear a lot is I'm worried that people are going to, judge me around fill in the blank, my weight, what I look like, do I speak clear enough? Is my idea, fill in the blank.
Right.
So what I tend to think about in these circumstances is really along the lines of what happens if I don't say it? Right. Like the question I ask my clients, I've been talking about this a lot lately, but it's been a question that I've posed for a couple of years now, is what in the world would change if you said what you wanted to say? On one hand, it can be a little flippant, like, what in the world would change? But on the other hand, I'm like, what in the world could actually change if you said this? And when I think of like big ideas and the message and the impact, to me, that is all about how to be of service, right? If we believe in what we're talking about, if we are committed to the idea, to the work, to the impact, it's actually a disservice to not to say those things, to not follow up on the actions that we need to be taking. And so for me, the fear of like getting the information to people so they can do something with it is, it really outweighs the fear I might have around visibility, right? Everybody has to do their own calculus, but that's how it works for me.
Yeah, I get that. Well, you embody that, right, with your BOLT methodology: bold, original, loud, and tenacious. So tell us about that. How did that come? What is that, and how did it come about?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm not like a super like crafty, creative type person in this way, but I was thinking a lot about ideas and metaphors about ideas, and the light bulb is a huge symbol, of course. But I really got to thinking about lightning and how when lightning strikes, it is jarring. And when I think about a big idea, it has that same effect. And that it's, really powerful because there's this energy that comes with it. And so as I started thinking about what makes ideas actually powerful, that's where this BOLT methodology came from. So bold ideas, meaning when we say them out loud, we feel a little bit uncomfortable. Like we can feel our inside, we're squirming a little bit. That's how you know. And if you don't feel that, you're either not committed enough to the idea, or you need to zhuzh it up a little bit.
Yes, I got to tell you, I've never heard you say that before, but that's exactly what I say when I talk to people about their LinkedIn profiles. If your headline doesn't make you feel a little uncomfortable when you hit save, then you need to go back and make it a little bit more powerful, because you are, I love that. Like I can't believe that you just said that.
That's awesome. So the bold piece, like, got to be a little bit uncomfortable. Original is all about you, right? If you think about messaging, you do messaging work, I do messaging work, it has to come from somewhere authentic. So this is your story. This is the why behind the work that you do, your experience, your expertise, and you're bringing all of that to the conversation. So it's not just some Jane on the street who's talking about it. It's you with a real story, with real impact that makes it personable and connectable. Loud to me is, are we saying things in a way that cut through the noise? So that's why I say, if everybody else is talking about the same issue in the same way in your industry, it just blends. It's white noise. So when you provide the counter view, or you say your perspective, but in a way that nobody else is talking about it, now all of a sudden it's like a megaphone shouting out into the ecosystem. And tenacious is kind of a lot of things, but I think the thing that matters the most is that most people give up on their idea too early. They stop talking about it. They don't allow the idea to grow and morph and change over time, right? As we get feedback, as the idea pressure tests, if we don't feel like we're making traction, it's easy to toss it aside. And we live in a very rapid turn culture, so it's easy to see how that happens. But when you're talking about social impact, when you're talking about, really wanting to push a paradigm shift in your space, that doesn't happen overnight. So you need a tenacity. You need the idea to be tenacious enough to withstand all of that comes with it. So that's sort of the guide behind the BOLT methodology.
And that's the foundation of the work you do with people, right?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how you work with people.
Yeah. So I start working with people, like you said, really digging into the big idea, like really trying to help them articulate and get clear on, what is my perspective? Why is this important to me? Why am I the right person to be talking about it? And then we move into, okay, how can we zhuzh this thing up? How can we bolt it and make our idea really a BOLT idea? And so we look at, what is the language we're using? How are we framing it? What are the stories we're using to talk through this, so that people get a sense for What are those values that we stand for? What is the impact that we're trying to create? All of that gets woven in. And then we figure out, okay, where do we talk about this? What are the right stages for you? Maybe it's, an actual stage. Maybe it's a TEDx stage. Maybe it's a podcast. Maybe it's a book, right? Like there's a lot of quote unquote stages. I often say stages of your own making that you get to decide where your message goes, how you talk about it, and all of that. And then getting people out there in a way that allows their thought leadership to surface. So that requires a level of visibility, a lot of discomfort in many cases with putting yourself and your ideas out there for feedback. So yeah, it's really kind of a holistic process of starting at the beginning and getting that big idea all the way to getting it out into the world so it makes the impact that you really want to have.
So cool. So cool. And you start with a free assessment, right? You have a Bolt assessment. Tell us about that.
Yes. So like I said, a lot of us have an idea, but we're like, maybe not uncomfortable enough. Maybe we haven't given it enough depth. And so there, you can grab the Bolt assessment. It's just on my website, jessicasato.com/Bolt. And it takes you through step by step for each of those 4 areas. Like where is the opportunity area for you? Where can you zhuzh it up from a boldness perspective? What do you need to do from a languaging perspective? So it just gives you some questions to work through in order to identify how you can make your message bigger and louder in the world.
Awesome. This has been great. I think that, I am here for making this topic more visible, right? The topic of being visible with what's important to you and being authentic in your messaging around that. And I love that you are too. And I love that we were able to bring this conversation out to more people. And we need to just, this is the ripple effect, right? We need to keep it going. So, everybody that's listening, go to jessicasato.com/Bolt and grab her Bolt assessment. And when you are ready to get more visible, going over to linkedinforpr.com, and all these links will be in the show notes, because I've got a free checklist that we just created that talks about how to get started with that. How do you get started with more visible? How do you find the opportunities to get your message in front of more people? And how do you use LinkedIn to do that? Because, people are buying from other people, and it's the relationships like this, like Jess and I, building a relationship around this, that's where the business is happening in 2025. It's the relationships. So I am excited to continue this messaging. Certainly follow Jess. You can find her on LinkedIn. We'll put that in the show notes as well. Jess, you're on Instagram too, right? Instagram and Threads. Yes, you are on Threads a lot, because I know I'm a lurker more on Threads than I am. And I it's usually like I'm laying in bed doom scrolling. That's when I watch Threads, and I just don't have the brain power to jump into conversations as much. I need to make that more of a part of my, in the middle of the day when my brain is active, conversation.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. I'm just starting on Threads. I'm really trying to figure out, like, is that the right place for me? But I like the quickness of the conversation. So we'll see.
Yeah, same. I love that. All right. Well, listen, I am excited to do this. You can catch more of the Karen and Jess show on Entrepreneurs Unfiltered on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, at least in February 2025 and beyond. And this has been great. And I think there's never been a more important time to consider the social impact that the work you're doing is having, to be intentional about it, and to create that impact intentionally, so that, we need to be doing that. We cannot be silent. I don't know what would happen. I don't know what's going to happen even if we're not silent, but I certainly know if we are silent, what's going to happen. So we need to have our voices loud and proud. So Jess, thank you so much for being here today. This was so fun.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. We'll see everybody back here again next week for another episode.